If you study photographs of Allied troops stationed along the North Sea coast in 1940 and 1941, something stands out immediately. There are men living in places where ordinary tents would have been shredded within hours. Gale-force winds, horizontal rain, salt spray, and freezing temperatures defined that environment. Yet units remained operational for months at a time. The secret was not endurance alone. It was a shelter system deliberately designed to work with wind, ground and materials rather than fighting them. This setup was so effective that it quietly replaced tents wherever storms made conventional camping impossible, and its logic remains relevant for anyone serious about survival in hostile climates. The reason tents failed so quickly in North Sea conditions was structural, not material. Canvas walls acted like sails. Poles flexed, guy lines snapped, and pressure differentials created constant flapping that tore fabric apart. Even when tents stayed upright, condensation soaked bedding and froze overnight. British and Canadian engineers recognized early that no amount of reinforcement would solve the core problem. Wind exposure itself had to be eliminated. The solution was not above ground, but into it. The primary setup that replaced tents was the dug-in semi-permanent field shelter, reinforced with prefabricated arches, most famously the Nissen hut, when materials allowed, and improvised earth-covered bivouacs when they did not. What really mattered was not the hut itself, but how it was placed, buried, and oriented. These shelters were never left exposed. They were sunk into shallow excavations, often half their height below ground level, and then banked with earth, sandbags, or turf on all sides except the entrance. This approach transformed the wind problem completely. At ground level, wind speed is already reduced. By lowering the shelter into the earth, exposure dropped dramatically. Banking soil against the curved walls eliminated pressure points where gusts could grip. The arched shape forced wind to flow over and around the structure rather than slam into it. Unlike flat-sided tents, there were no edges to catch the storm. Orientation mattered just as much as construction. Entrances were never placed facing prevailing winds. Along the North Sea, this meant turning doors away from the northwest and north. Many shelters used a short entrance passage dug at an angle, creating a wind trap that stopped gusts before they reached the interior. This simple feature reduced heat loss, prevented rain intrusion, and stabilized internal air pressure. Inside, conditions were controlled rather than merely endured. Floors were raised using duckboards or packed gravel to prevent ground moisture from seeping upward. Stoves were placed near the center with flues exiting vertically through insulated collars. The curved roof helped heat circulate evenly, preventing cold pockets. Condensation, the silent killer of morale and health, was reduced because interior surfaces stayed closer to ambient temperature instead of flashing cold. The real strength of this setup was its adaptability. When steel huts were unavailable, troops used timber frames covered with corrugated metal, tarred felt or salvaged materials, then buried them the same way. In emergencies, even simple trench shelters with overhead log roofs and earth cover followed the same principles. Lower the profile, add mass, remove wind exposure, and control airflow deliberately. Applying this knowledge today is straightforward if you focus on principles rather than historical exactness. The first step is abandoning the idea of fully exposed shelters in high-wind environments. Even a modern four-season tent performs better when partially dug in or shielded by earth berms. Excavating a shallow depression and banking soil around the base can reduce wind load dramatically without specialized tools. The second step is shape selection. Rounded or sloped surfaces outperform vertical walls in storms. If building with modern materials, curved roofing panels, angled plywood, or even flexible frames covered and weighted with soil will mimic the same effect. Flat walls should always be shielded with earth, snow, or stacked materials. The third step is entrance control. A straight-through doorway invites wind. Adding a short-angled corridor, even one made from tarps and poles covered with soil or snow, creates a pressure break. This single feature can mean the difference between a livable shelter and one that bleeds heat continuously. Ground moisture management is the fourth critical lesson. Raised sleeping platforms, drainage trenches, and breathable floor layers matter more than insulation alone. World War II shelters remained habitable because water was given somewhere else to go. Mud and rot were treated as engineering problems, not inconveniences. What makes this World War II setup worth studying is that it was developed under pressure, tested by real storms, and refined by necessity. There was no room for theory divorced from reality. If a shelter failed, men froze, equipment rusted, and operations stalled. The fact that these systems held up against North Sea storms is the strongest proof of their effectiveness. This is not nostalgia. It is hard-earned knowledge from one of the most hostile theatres of the war. If you care about practical history, survival engineering, and lessons that still apply today, this channel is built for you. Subscribe to stay connected to research-driven content that goes beyond surface-level storytelling. And share this episode with anyone who believes tents are the final answer to bad weather.